p.m. We'll call the Finance Committee meeting to order. Note this meeting is being televised, streamed, or recorded by Bourne TV. If anyone in the audience is recording or videotaping, you need to acknowledge it at this time. Use of flash photography during select boards during the meeting is prohibited. If anyone from the public wishes to access the meeting, they can do so by calling the following conference line, 929-205-6099, Zoom meeting ID 856-8528-0083, password finance, all capitals. The Zoom chat will not be monitored. Participants who wish to speak must raise the hand icon until the chair asks them to unmute. All items within the meeting agenda are subject to deliberation and votes. Okay. First is excused members. Carla couldn't make it tonight. Next, a reserve fund transfer request for vote order.
If you don't mind, could we please table that until the DNR director arrives?
Oh, certainly.
I am expecting her to come tonight to talk to you about that.
Okay. Next item, review warrant for January 6th special town meeting. The article, motion, and recommendation.
Thank you. So, thanks for meeting tonight. As you may know, the select board called a town meeting for January 6th at 7 p.m. at the middle school gym. Please note, we're meeting in the gym at the middle school. And if you recall, shortly before fall town meeting, the engineer that the town hired for the Southside Fire Station land purchase asked us to do a little bit more due diligence regarding any potential contamination at 171 Clay Pond Road. So the select board, right before town meeting, removed that article from the warrant, and we did not take it at that time. However, we went through that process. We did a phase 1 and a phase 2 environmental assessment report. We hired an LSP to do that. And the results of the phase 1 and the phase 2 both came back as unrestricted, which means that the property is clean, the soil's clean. So there's no restriction on the use, and there's no restriction on where any material that we removed from there would have to go. So if it's contaminated, then it's restricted to being landfilled in a lined landfill, but it's unrestricted and clean. So the seller has been working cooperatively with us and has given us the time we need. And we are recommending that we move forward with that purchase. The motion will be $1,750,000. The purchase price of the land is $1.5 million, and then we're asking for funds for legal survey, demolition, and disposal of the existing structures. And the source of the funds is capital stabilization. So there's adequate funds available in the stabilization, and that's where we would recommend that it be funded through. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? No, this is your baby. All right, thank you.
Oh, hold up,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman. So I just wanted to know, I noticed you're going to do a fit study to see if your requirements match.
Yep, and we did that before the fall town meeting.
Oh, you did?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I know that there are also 2 new trucks, possibility of purchasing 2 new trucks. Is that site going to accommodate those trucks?
Yes, yes. So
Okay.
the station is the station that we fit on the site is a 4 full double bay station.
Okay, and then the fit study took that into consideration, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to kind of add that someone, a relative who lives in Falmouth, said, just be sure your doors fit your trucks, because apparently their new fire station, they had to redesign the door size. So just that kind of thing can happen, but anyway, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion on this? No? Does anyone want to make a motion on whether we make a recommendation to approve this?
I'll make motion to approve
I'll second.
1.75.
So, you would be recommending approval? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Of the article?
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve or recommend approval. A second. Any further discussion? No? We don't have anyone remote, right? We can do it just by voice, like old times?
Correct.
Hey, there you go. It's been a long time. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So it's unanimous. 7, right? 7, 8. 7-0.
There's 6 of us now.
Oh, yeah, I counted myself twice. Well, we could do the budget discussion, and if the DNR director comes, just interrupt that.
Sure, and if she doesn't make it tonight, we can reschedule that.
Okay. So Erica graciously offered to answer any questions we have that aren't about any specific things. Does anyone have any questions?
I do. So I guess I wanted to kind of highlight something Wayne said at our last meeting, was just to make sure that what should take precedent is probably to look to maintain our current assets and kind of be mindful of that. When I first joined, I wanted to know, and I wasn't sure if it was answered, but do we have a schedule for the maintenance of all of our assets? Do we have like a comprehensive schedule for, say how old roofs are and when they need to be replaced? Are we reminded of that, or that sort of thing? Another anecdote is that a relative was playing pickleball in this, I think it's this building. You said the community building. Are there pickleball courts in this building?
They use the gym.
Yeah, so evidently the roof was leaking when they were playing. So I just, that's of great concern to me, is the maintenance of assets. Driving through towns and doing projects in towns, it doesn't look very good for a town to have buildings that are in disrepair. So I really like the fact that Bourne does care about its assets, but it concerned me that I wasn't sure whether there was a comprehensive plan to maintain our assets.
I will say it's something that we're working on. We have been developing long-term plans in recent years. I would say that, before Marlene joined us and before we had a facilities manager, capital sometimes was more of a paper exercise, but we have been working with departments and we are trying to make it more meaningful and useful. So while it might not be perfect and at the ready for every single asset that we have in town, it is something that we're watching. Do you have anything to add, Marlene?
It is definitely a high priority, and we have come a long way with creating those 5-year plans.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that speaks to your looking into the future, your budgetary needs for the future, but thank you.
If I can just follow up on it. So we do, so the town does have a specific facilities manager. How long have they been with us?
Well, he just left, but we're bringing a new person on board on Monday.
Okay. So are they responsible for the maintenance of all buildings, or
Townside buildings only,
Townside, not school.
no school.
So does each school have its own janitorial staff? or-
I cannot answer any questions about the school.
Okay,
The charter gives me authority over the town side.
message received. So on the town side, so our facilities manager is, at some point, gonna be responsible for the maintenance of all buildings?
On the.
Town side.
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
They already
okay.
are. The position is, let me
Okay,
put it
good.
that way.
Okay. Now, does this person have a work crew assigned to him that goes out and maintains all the buildings?
We have a small facilities staff. We have 2 skilled laborers. We have a head custodian. We have 3 full-time custodians, and we have 1 part-time custodian. So we have a very small facility staff. And then we rely on, we have a part-time electrician too. And then we rely on a lot of contractors.
Has any thought been given down the road to the mission of the facilities department?
Well, there's been a lot of thought given to
Right,
it,
okay.
but.
Yeah. I mean, one of the, I think this issue came up the last time on the Parks and Recreation of spending a lot of money, but there was no plan about maintenance. And that's the type of thing that I think we were thinking about a little bit is what preventive steps can we take to avoid all of these emergencies coming in for that type of thing?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, things have been not maintained for so long that, you know, you'll see an OPM and a designer when we talk about FY '26 for the library. And the library was renovated was renovated in, I think, 1986. And it was turned in to the library, and because it previously had been the grammar school. And then it pretty much hasn't been touched since then. So, I mean, when we're talking about from 1986 to now with no system upgrades, you know, it's the same boiler, it's the same chiller, it's the same electrical system, there's no sprinklers there, you know, it's past its useful life. So, you know, at some point, years ago, that opportunity wasn't, you know, that opportunity for maintenance was missed. And now trying to maintain that building at this point is impossible, given the amount of work that's necessary and the code upgrades that would be necessary.
I mean, and I think it's important that we discuss this in the open, because it's a kind of it's been, I think, a hidden problem, something that the public doesn't know about. But if they understand that we're looking at it from the point of view, if we can do routine maintenance and catch these problems before they become a major issue, in the long run, we can actually save money for the town and have better facilities at the same time.
Yeah, which is what we're trying really hard to
Right.
do.
Yep. Thank you.
Tom?
What do you think that we should know or do that we haven't been doing properly? Like, for instance, procedures, policies, anything that you think we're just not doing like we should?
I don't think there's anything that,
Don't be
Yeah.
critical, it's okay to be critical.
no, that's okay. I guess, are you speaking from the town perspective or from the FinCom's perspective?
I'd like to know the FinCom.
Both. I find myself trying to understand a lot of things, and it just goes right over my head sometimes, and I need to know how to grab what I need to know.
Yeah. It's really difficult because of the constraints of Prop 2.5, so that's the amount of revenue that we can earn or grow each year. And when I started, a big portion of the budget was being funded with one-time revenue sources, and that was free cash. And at the same time,
Which is just a terrible policy. I mean, which is just a terrible practice.
because what happens is you you use that one-time revenue source this year, but next year, you almost have to fill last year's gap plus the next year's gap. So we've made a lot of strides to take that out of the budget and to fund it without free cash. It made our budget more meaningful. But the problem is we had a lot of debt fall off, and all of those payments maturing just got eaten up by costs in our operating budget.
So that investment capacity we're losing that investment capacity.
And it's a really difficult balance, because without additional funding beyond Prop 2.5, it's not necessarily realistic to be able to build that back in, because 80% of our budget, you know, on the town side, town services, is staffing. It's personnel costs.
Was it 85%?
It's around 80%. So, and then we're, you know, facing a tremendous amount of pressure from the Retirement Association to fund that liability. We have pressure to fund our OPEB liability. So it just makes it tight. But I guess at least we're maintaining services. It's really hard to add extra. So any way that we can come up with creative ideas to generate new revenue would be a good place to look at.
I think one of the things that the Finance Committee can do is really not to be shy about asking us if there is something we're saying or we're showing you that you're not comfortable with. We would much rather you don't have to do it at the meeting. You can email Jim, and Jim will pass, that along, and we'll make a point of kind of going into whatever that question area is deeper, because we want to give you a level of comfort, and we don't want the Finance Committee we don't want you to feel like you're just a rubber stamp, and we want you to have, the knowledge and the confidence and be, comfortable pushing back if there's something that doesn't seem right.
Thank you for saying that, because a lot of times over the past, I don't know, how long have I been here, about 4 years? No, I don't know, it doesn't matter. A lot of times I felt as though it doesn't make too much difference what we say. And I don't mean that critically, I just, not being a rubber stamp is important.
I agree, and I'm not implying that you have been a rubber stamp, but I think that, it's just the nature of the way the charter has set up the government, the municipal government, is that you are, by design, supposed to be very independent. So you shouldn't feel like you have to just take us at our word. We have a very good working relationship, but, there's not going to be any hard feelings. Let me put it this way. We would like to invite as many questions as you'd like to give us, because it'll make the process better for you, and it'll make the process better for the town in general. So we're not at all defensive about having questions. We'd like you to ask questions. And if something doesn't seem right, then we can we should talk about it.
Okay, I have a couple of comments. So, a couple of things. Well, one thing that you just said, and I've only lived here for like 8 years, but to say that building is beyond its useful life, I think throws a dagger into a lot of Bourne people's hearts, because that is a historic area. And you may call it, I don't know what parameters you're looking at for a library or for, in terms of providing the proper code or, what have you, but that kind of, I would like more explanation about that, number one. And number two is, a couple of meetings back, I had asked for the graphic that was shown on the screen. Tim Lyden showed a graphic on the screen for the phase 1 of the bike path. And I asked publicly in the meeting, and I asked online. His office, I wrote a note on, the online messaging system. I believe I sent you one as well, and I never heard back.
So I can definitely check with Tim. I did not receive an inquiry, but I can definitely check with Tim.
Okay.
And I do know his phase 1 materials are on the engineering division's website.
Yeah.
So let me check with him.
Maybe
And-
I checked it on the wrong space on his website, but that particular graphic was not shown.
Okay, let me check with Tim. And the comment, so the building is past its useful life for use as a library. It is a masonry structure. We have no flexibility in moving any of the walls. And the programming that the library trustees and the library staff is looking for is not able to be accommodated given the structural constraints. It has no sprinklers. It does not have enough amperage in the building for our use. It is, libraries require one of the highest load ratings for the stacks, and the structure does not meet the load ratings. So I'm not trying to, insult the neighborhood, but for a library, it is past its useful life. As far as the modern services the library trustees want to use or want to provide.
I think that's a great example of, what we see come before the capital outlay is, to say that it's beyond its useful life, to me, when I'm looking at that, or the cost of it, is what's the cost of building a new one that meets the necessary requirements versus is it even possible to do it at that particular location? And because of the older structure here, I mean, my limited knowledge is we just can't do what we have to do in that particular building. Plus, with all the damage that's been coming in to the outside structure, the ultimate cost would be outrageous to do it. And like I said, I mean, I don't have any idea what other use the town might have for it, but certainly structurally, we might be able to do something else. But for the library, I can see, and that's why if you look around at most other communities, especially for libraries, they're building buildings so that they can get it structurally correct, because of the weight of the books and the floors, and then technology today is just completely different.
So I had a question about enterprise funds, because sometimes we fund something, such and such a thing, out of retained earnings, right? There's retained earnings that's like, I guess it's just like profits, right? Mm-hmm. Can they just accumulate year after year, or do they need to be spent per year?
They can accumulate year after year, and town meeting would need to vote to spend them.
Okay.
We don't have a specific policy in regards to the sewer enterprise fund as to how much can accumulate in that fund.
And those,
There's no rule to the accumulation, is that what you're saying?
and the money's supposed to be used for those purposes, right, like ice swim and sewer, but I saw something about I forget what year it was, maybe last time, just transferring some money from ice swim to the town for, I don't know, from some other shared services we do, I don't know if it's electricity,
The indirect costs?
yeah. So can we be how liberal can you be with indirect costs? Can you say, well, the wear and tear on our roads, or there's an extra police person? I don't know how strict those impacts have to be.
So we do have the indirect cost as part of our funding sources within the general fund budget, and they're for general administrative services. If you'd like, I can, when we start looking at the fiscal '26 budget in more detail, I'll make sure I have the detailed reports so you can see everything that is included in those reports, or in those costs, if you will. And the important thing is that we have a developed plan, and that they're consistent, and that it makes sense, and we're not just charging extra costs to the enterprise funds to supplement our budget. We're very conservative with them.
So I can give you an example for ISWIM. And I've never seen the vote that created this, but ISWIM, the enterprise fund, pays the full freight for all of the curbside trash and recycling pickup. So there's a large indirect transfer from ISWIM to the general fund budget to pay for the salaries of the truck drivers who drive the trash truck. ISWIM also pays the costs of maintaining the trash trucks. So those are the types of things that happen through the indirect transfer. So the costs attributed to curbside trash and recycling are charged to ISWIM, and that's done through that indirect cost transfer. Sewer, and there's a whole host of other things too that are in the indirect cost. An example from sewer is for a long time, I was providing a lot of support to sewer. Finance provides a lot of support to sewer. So there's a small portion of our salaries that are charged to sewer. It's not, we don't keep a timesheet, and it's not hour for hour, but there is an acknowledgement that the sewer enterprise fund is part of our job, and those costs are captured in those indirect transfers. Does that make sense?
Now, certainly, that includes health insurance, retirement funding. I mean, those are huge costs. So,
So all the fringe benefits for any employees in those funds that are charged to the
Right.
general fund.
those are really big numbers.
It's not important, but do a lot of people around town understand the way those enterprise funds work? Because I don't think a lot of people do. For instance, my neighbor, who puts me through the Inquisition on a regular basis. But he has some legitimate questions, and I say to myself, I wonder how come he didn't know that? But I don't even know how that information would get out, except if they come to town meeting, they might learn that.
Yeah. So both of these these two enterprise funds are actually very different. So the sewer enterprise fund, I would say, is definitely a more typical enterprise fund, and it's funded by ratepayers. So if you're on the system, you get a sewer bill, and that's you're treated like a customer, and you're billed for your sewer hookup. This particular town doesn't have a municipal water department, but municipal water departments operate the same way as an enterprise fund. The ISWIM enterprise fund is very unique because it derives its revenue from tipping fees. So it really operates like a private company, like a private business. So people who non-residents or commercial entities, businesses that want to dispose of their waste are weighed, and charged the weight per ton, and that, I mean, that is truly how ISO makes its money. That one is very unique. I think there's one other municipal landfill still in operation in Massachusetts. So the ISWIM Enterprise Fund is not standard, but the Sewer Enterprise Fund that's the model. It's a customer ratepayer-based model. So I don't know how to help your neighbor, but.
No, I just wonder if a lot of people in town understand that that is a profitable venture, and I don't think a lot of people do. And I think they're impressed when they do hear it.
The ISWIM?
Yeah.
It's hugely
Yeah.
profitable.
Well, I mean, people are impressed by the fact that that is happening, for what it's worth.
And generally, we don't run an enterprise fund to generate a profit.
Yeah.
I mean, we're municipal government, we're not here to generate a profit, if you will. But I think it's also important to note that at some point, the town did vote to establish these enterprise funds, because they would have all been folded into the general fund. So at some point, we said, hey, let's take these activities and account for them separately. And it's really just an accounting mechanism. We're all still the town, we all still operate under one tax ID number. It's just accounted for over here, and it's separating those activities and funds.
One of the questions, and you touched on it earlier, is I think a lot of residents don't understand the historical perspective of trying to fund the retirement, the catch-ups that we're doing. And those are huge numbers. They hear at town meeting that we're not gonna be able to pay it off until 35 or 40, well, I don't know what year you're looking at now. But can you give us a little historical perspective of it's two funds that we're paying for, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, and how long we anticipate, and what we're trying to accomplish by funding those?
Sure, so there, like you said, there are two major liabilities. There's the pension liability, so that is a promise that we made to our employees that we're going to pay their pensions when they leave, and that's all in accordance with PERIC, which is the State Retirement Board, as well as the Barnstable County Retirement Board. So for a lot of years, it was just pay-as-you-go, and the funding rates were low. And then as the years moved on, they did start increasing the funding rates, but then the accounting standards changed, and pay-as-you-go wasn't an option anymore. It's required that we brought all of those liabilities onto our balance sheet, and that we showed what we were gonna own in the future. And that sound financial practices, kind of like those things happen in the private world in Big Gap, it kind of trickled down to the municipal side. So there really wasn't a mechanism in place for funding those liabilities. So in the last decade or so, it's been a push, especially with our bond rating agencies, to fund them. So it's really a promise to pay.
So what we're trying to do is we're trying to fund it, the full amount going forward, the anticipated lifespan of our employees, and that those funds are sitting there so that we're not looking every year at.
Right, it would have to be adjusted every year, but if the town were to close tomorrow, which it's not, we have to have that money set aside to
Right.
pay everyone.
Right.
Because that's a promise we made, it's an obligation that we have. So that's really what we're trying to do. It's the same concept really with the OPEB liability, which is the health and dental and life insurance versus the pension. This generation is really trying to make up and pay for what a prior generation didn't plan for. So we're kind of all being stuck holding the bag now.
So what is the, are we talking the 2040s before we were fully funded?
So we anticipate being fully funded, let's see, PERIC is really pushing by 2035 for the pensions. I think Barnstable County's current schedule is 2037 or 2038. As far as the OPEB, I would have to check my notes, but it's within the next, it's in like, I would say 2040, kind of in that same, it's after the pension. The idea is you fund your pension liability, and then it's almost like you have two silos, and then you can start pushing those additional funds into your OPEB liability.
So when we reach those goalposts, are we then gonna have additional funding
We
for
should.
operation expenses?
We should.
And that number right now is about 3 or 4,000, a million a year total?
I wouldn't be able to estimate that at the moment.
I mean, what do we allocate now in our budget? I think it was 2 million that you paid for retirement to catch up last year? Was it?
So within our budget, we're assessed annually from Boswell County Retirement. So, it pays a little bit for current and a little bit for future.
Right,
So it's-
okay.
So I'd have to reach out to the Retirement Association to kind of dig into the
Yeah.
details there. I'm not gonna pretend to be able to estimate
Yeah,
that for you.
okay.
Yeah, we get told every year what our bill is gonna be we get told every December essentially what our bill will be in July. And the retirement board sets that assessment.
And as far as the OPEB, we've been putting a significant portion at the fall town meeting based on our financial policies, so that money would hopefully free up, as well as the piece that's within our budget, I think. In fiscal '26, that number is growing to over $400,000, so.
Right.
So when those are fully funded, would the idea be we'd pay as to go for new retirees, or there'd be such like an endowment that would just be self-supporting?
Right, there would be like the investment income that would hopefully support the future growth of the cost, but you'd have your pay-as-you-go and kind of adjust annually for any unanticipated costs or trends in the industry.
And as we live longer, you pay out more in retirement costs.
I got something.
Yeah.
In the DSL, the Guide to Financial Management for Town Officials, I was reading a section in here. It's Section 5, Role of the Finance Committee. How can the Finance Committee prepare a budget when revenue and expenditure estimates are always changing? And they had a good idea in here. I don't know if it'll be a pain to do, but they stated that possibly from you, we could get monthly financial reports that we could evaluate at meeting or just on our own, send it in an email, and we could see the trend in the budget as we go through the year, and maybe prepare for any changes for a financial situation.
I think that's a good suggestion. We have been working on quarterly reports, but let me see what we can do and run some reports and what information is useful to you.
Right. That's
Be important.
It's broad, but it's broad,
So-
but I don't know.
I don't want to just give you a bunch of numbers
Right.
if they're not useful. So that's something we could refine.
I
Be
think
open to
keeping
that.
it somewhat simple is good.
Yeah, just like a little breakdown of.
What I always look for is how much was budgeted and where are we in the year and how much do I have left?
Right.
That tells us who's running over budget and who's running under budget somewhat, just to give us an idea.
Right,
of
and why?
where we are. Well, yeah, I mean, from the report, we're not gonna know why, but,
I can tell you that would be easy to achieve for the expenditure side.
Yeah.
And I'm actually working with the interim town accountant to get all of that data in for the revenue side. So hopefully that'll be something that would be easily available to you. That doesn't require us to recreate documents and
Right,
whatnot.
right.
But I'm happy to do whatever is helpful. And so,
There was something in there, too, about a finance committee can request some kind of an accounting or audit of such and such a thing, for example, like whether the fees charged for ambulances cover the cost of ambulances. I don't know how much work that is, and I know you have to make some assumptions anytime you do that kind of thing, but I don't know if that is done by anybody, but it was in there
Yeah,
somewhere.
I saw that too.
I know that the fire chief, that's something that he looks at and he's evaluating with, what because we have a third-party vendor and making sure that they're collecting funds and whatnot, but we can probably provide something like that too, if you need that summarized.
So that's a great question. I'm assuming that we're profitable?
Yes.
Right, okay. I mean, some communities are not. It really depends on how many of the residents have health insurance. So, you know, some communities, they just don't have it, so they have to write it off.
Right.
You know, but a community like ours, we're probably pretty good shape. You know, and then the cost of the personnel that's huge. And look at the cost of an ambulance. You know, so.
So I had a question about, I don't know if there's an answer to this, because it seems to be kind of just a boilerplate language, but if there's a motion that involves borrowing money, it's always preceded by this thing where any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of the issuance of such bonds or notes may be applied, et cetera, et cetera. So what's that mean? Does the town get money back? Do we buy a bond and someone says, here's like a kickback for you?
Well, yeah, kind of. So we sell our bonds in the financial markets just like anything else, and sometimes we receive a premium. So if our bond's $100,000, maybe it's valuable to somebody else, so they want to pay $105,000. Those are very simple numbers. So that additional money, that $5,000, that premium, we would use to pay down the note. You'll actually see that language removed going forward because it's automatic now as part of the Municipal Modernization Act, so we don't have to put all the detail in there, but, so yeah.
But it still happens.
But it still happens, so anything above par, we pay down the note, so we don't have to borrow as much. The old way used to be, you'd take those funds and you put them in a separate account, and then you'd have to use them for either borrowing costs or like projects. So this simplifies it a little bit. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I don't understand why we get money back. If you want to borrow 100,000, someone would say, we'll give you 105,000, and then you take 5,000 and pay off that principal right away?
Yeah, so we just, we instead of borrowing 100, we borrow 95.
Okay. I don't know how that would arise, but I get the idea.
Depends on how bad they need the money.
And we won't even see this language in there anymore, right? It'll be behind the scenes.
Should,
Yeah.
So I have a question about cherry sheets. What I asked before, I just was kind of confused. If there's a so-called assessment and cherry sheet, does that just mean that's like that much less money the state will give the town? The assessment is a negative in that ledger. It doesn't mean we actually have to send them a check for that?
yeah, so an assessment is a charge, and each month they do send us our receipt, our payment, but our payment is our monthly distribution payment less the assessment. So we receive the net, but at the end of the day, it's a charge.
But they don't send us all the money and then we send some of it back. They only send us the difference after they've kept theirs.
But if you were to look at the financial statements or our books, you'll see the full amount of the assessment and the full amount of the revenue.
What would the town charge us an assessment for?
The state,
The state?
Yeah.
What would the state assess us for?
They assess us for retired teacher,
health insurance.
health insurance. They assess us for charter school tuitions. They assess us for school choice.
They assess us for a lot of money.
There's a county tax that we're assessed. But I'm happy to share the cherry sheets too.
Yeah.
And it's all listed right on there.
Thanks. Anyone have any more questions?
I do have one more question. In community projects such as the Hoxie School, where the nonprofit has taken it, is there any oversight in a project like that by the town?
No. So the select board closed and transferred that property to the nonprofit, and the nonprofit it's a private project, so the nonprofit is solely responsible. We don't invest any of our resources into managing their project.
So that the real estate belongs to them, or how does that work?
Yes, it's been transferred. There's a recapture clause. If they don't do their project, it will return to the town, but it's been transferred to them. They own title.
So they have completed their project?
No,
Oh,
no. They have to have title in order to get their financing.
okay. And then what does it look like in the future for that? Does the town at any time assess whether they have completed the project?
There is, I don't recall off the top of my head, but there is a time limit on, it's not open-ended. They, within so many years, they do have to have their building permits and be showing progress.
How is that measured? And who does it?
It's in the, I don't recall the details off the top of my head. It's in the purchase and sales agreement. It's in the award that the select board signed with them. I think it was 4 years, but don't quote me on that.
Thank you. And who would know about that if the town administrator doesn't know? Was it the
No.
select board or?
I have the files, I just don't have it in front of me.
Oh, okay.
All right, any more questions?
I just have
Just
a-
one comment.
Yeah,
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Just one comment on the Hoxie. I think the town paid for the roof.
It was a CPC paid for part, I don't think it was the full amount, the CPC.
That's not my question.
Yep,
The-
paid for
the-
some of
The
it.
fact is, the roof did get done, so the thing is not falling apart, at least as much.
I don't know if the roof has been done.
Oh, I watched it get done.
Oh, okay,
Yes, it's
fine.
done.
You have, yes. I don't know if they've, come in and asked for their money yet.
Oh, okay.
They may have.
I feel like they have, but what typically would happen was when they've finished their project, they would submit everything for reimbursement through the CPC committee, they would review it, and then we would reimburse them the money. So they're not getting the money in advance, they have to show that they've completed whatever project was approved, et cetera.
Yeah.
My point was that it's moving along, it's happening, apparently.
Good,
Those of us that live nearby are happy about that.
good, good.
Is the point.
So, Amanda?
So actually, that was a good segue into what I have to say. So it's just, I know I've asked Barry for this and I haven't received it, so I just want to make a general comment. I would like more insight into the CPC projects. I know they come before town meeting, we approve them, and it seems like we never hear about them again. So I'm sure there are some outstanding. I'd just like to know sort of where they stand, what's been done. I know when needs to be turned back, you come before us to do so, but in general, I would just like a better status on those projects. And I know some already made comments on the maintenance, just looking at the big picture of things. I know a lot of times it seems like we're looking at it in a silo, so I think the big picture helps put things in perspective.
I think the CPC comment is right on point, and, I do encourage the finance committee to, when you do see the CPC articles, to
I did ask last time for a list and I didn't get it, so.
keep asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep, they do have kind of their own process.
Yep.
I know it doesn't necessarily help with the status of the project, but we did move into the financial policies, the new ones, that at least anything that relates to a town building will
Right.
come to us first,
Right.
as opposed to the CPC just approving projects and moving forward, so.
So in the future, we'll have a much better handle on at least the town assets that are using CPC. Now, the private groups that receive funding is a different story.
So a CPC project couldn't be asked by the library people and approved by CPC to do some repairs in the library without going through some more capital review process?
Correct, and that's new. So in the past, the library trustees did just go to CPC, and it was kind of, very disjointed, and it was not part of the capital plan. But now with this policy review that we did last time around, if it's a town asset, so if it's a municipally owned property, they have to go through the capital plan before they can go to CPC for money.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, any more questions? No? Well, thank you. So the next item would be minutes. So these went out in our packet. So you noticed some omission, right? Do you remember which?
I don't
that
recall
was?
which date it was, but the comments about navigable versus non-navigable waterways, it's an appraisal type of thing, and it kind of speaks to who owns where you might be putting a dock. Do you actually have rights to put a dock in a navigable waterway? Whether the waterway is navigable or not, so it does have legal implications. And I believe it was omitted from the said meeting.
Well, if you can identify which date it was, we can.
Yeah, I can't right now.
I don't know if well, some of these minutes are definitely not it. They were just short, right? Like the one.
I've got one change.
Okay, great.
My last name was spelled wrong.
Oh.
The 10/21/24, I was excused, absent. Dan Dugan, that's not me.
All right, so in no particular order, the minutes of October 21st, which are very brief, that was at the town meeting, the special town meeting. So this one, we just met, went to town meeting, except for Dan, and then you have this, right? So we voted with which articles were essential. We voted to recommend indefinitely postponing Article 15, and then we adjourned. So is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve with the correction of his name.
Yes, thank you.
Second that.
All right, with this correction, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Well, so do you want to us to find what that is? And
I think it was September 30th, because in that one it talks about the Article 14, Conservation Commission, and it talks specifically about the public
okay,
docks.
so I found that. Well, do you remember if you made a comment or had a question that you want to be entered into these minutes?
You mean, do I remember what I said last time? I guess I wanted reconsideration of accepting, well, I guess, what is, first off, what is the status of the allowing permanent docks?
Well, I don't,
I think I wanted reconsideration and more research done in where permanent docks were to be.
go for it.
My understanding is that they withdrew the article, so it was never voted on, correct?
You're bringing this, you're having this discussion under minutes, so.
Right.
So, in order to approve your minutes, there needs to be an amendment made to the language of the minutes. That's, I mean, that's the item on the agenda, is consideration of the minutes.
Yeah, so if you can remember a question or comment you made that you want entered in here, we
So I don't think we should remember. I think that it can be rewatched if she thinks something was omitted. I don't want to guess and put something in the
Okay,
minutes,
so
but I
we'll-
also don't necessarily know that the minutes have to capture everything. My understanding was
Verbatim.
it's basically just to, right, get the sense of what happened during the meeting, votes, et cetera, and didn't necessarily have to,
All right, so we
like
can,
Wayne said, capture verbatim every,
so we can defer the September 30th minutes, and we can check with Kim, who's our recording
Okay.
secretary, doesn't come in person anymore, and I'll go back between you two and see if I
That's
can clarify this.
reasonable, I think.
You're welcome. All right, how about the minutes of September 23rd? So motion to approve them.
So moved.
second.
Any further discussion, September 23rd? Looks like everyone here was present then. Any further discussion? Yeah, all in favor of approving the minutes of September 23rd?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. And finally, November 19th. Anyone have a motion to approve the minutes of November 19th? That was, we were at that was our joint meeting, right, where you presented the budget.
November 19th? Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion on this one? All in favor? Say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. So do you want to do the DNR thing? Can you just say, well, they need a new boat engine?
Sure, I'm sorry.
After reviewing that was, sorry to interrupt already. Can they trade in old engines? Do they have any value?
I can't answer the questions. So if there's questions, I think you should hold. Hannah has the quote in the packet, and that's really the extent of my knowledge about the details of this project. All I know is that the patrol boat needs a new engine.
By when do they need the money? Because we wouldn't meet again for a while, although we could potentially do that when we meet on January 6th before town meeting.
I would not ask for a special meeting for this. It would wait until your next business meeting or the next time you met.
Right, well, let's get a sense of the committee. Do you want to hear from the DNR person about the rationale for this request for the repower proposal?
I think to Tom's point earlier, we should wait.
Okay. That's fine, it's not urgent, right? So we'll defer that.
So the only thing is, if we wait until the spring, and then if we have to wait until.
I don't think we're waiting till the spring. We start our budget meetings end of January,
Yeah, this is
early
just a
February.
reserve fund transfer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is a reserve fund transfer.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
All right, so we'll put off to next time we meet, or unless something
Yeah.
happens. Thank you.
yeah. So I mean, at the very worst, it would be January 6th before the special town meeting.
And that brings us to next meeting and future agenda items. That would probably be January 6th as part of the special town meeting, and then
Yeah.
start the new season. All right, anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Well moved.
Second.
Just point of order?
Yes, certainly.
Are you going to vote on any of the capital items, or?
Capital's not on this,
Not on this agenda?
it's not on this agenda. Nothing for FY '26 is on this agenda.
Okay.
This agenda is for the January special town meeting.
Okay.
And the opportunity to have a general discussion before we start FY '26.
Okay, so the items that are here for the January 6th meeting, do we have to vote on those? Do we have to take a preliminary vote?
We did.
It was already
That
did.
was, it's only the
We
acquiring
took it
the,
last time.
No, it's
No,
just, the
we
only
just
thing
did
is
it
the
this
land
meeting.
for the fire
Oh,
station.
For the fire
okay.
station
That's
only.
the only item.
There's one article,
Okay,
that's it.
I'm with you now.
Okay.
If we get a quorum for that. All right, so there was a motion made and second to adjourn. Any further discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you.